Okay, so you really want to step up your Agile game. Well, get this. We're about to give you the ultimate Agile Swiss Army knife.
We're talking about disciplined agile, or DA.
Forget rigid rules. Think flexible, adaptable, ready for anything.
Precisely. Picture this. A world where you can just pick the absolute best agile and lean techniques and, just use what works best for your situation.
It's all about adapting, right? Not
Right.
forcing everyone into a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, it's the beauty of DA.
So we're trading in our recipe books for chef's hats in the Agile kitchen.
I like that.
And from what I'm hearing, this disciplined Agile Scrum Master, this DASM, they sound like they're a pretty key ingredient in all of this.
Yeah, think of the DSM as like that seasoned chef who helps you navigate a really well-stocked agile kitchen, right?
Okay, yeah.
They guide the team to choose the right ingredients.
Which in our case is methodologies.
Yes, and blend them in a way that creates something truly unique and delicious for your project.
So no more just tossing Scrum, Kanban, Lean into a blender, hitting Frappe, and hoping for the best.
Definitely not. Each methodology has its own flavor.
Right.
And a good DSM, they help the team really understand those flavors, how they complement each other, how to combine them effectively, based on the project's unique recipe.
It's like that personalized cooking show experience, but for Agile development.
Hmm.
So instead of just like dictating the recipe, the DSM is more of a guide. They empower the team to make the choices.
Exactly. And that's one key difference compared to a traditional Scrum Master who might be, very focused on everyone following that Scrum framework down to the letter.
Right.
But a DSM, they encourage that exploration of the entire Agile pantry. They might say, hey, why don't we try a dash of Kanban here to visualize this workflow better? And then maybe a sprinkle of lean thinking there to, reduce some waste.
I like that.
It's about really choosing what works in that moment for that situation.
So flexibility, adapting, evolving as you go, instead of being stuck with that rigid rule book.
Precisely. And that's actually where that disciplined part of disciplined agile comes in.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's not about being chaotic or random,
Yeah.
There is a method to the madness. It's about being deliberate, thoughtful in your approach, making informed choices, and ultimately reaching your goals.
So there's a method to the madness, even though it might look different for every project.
Exactly. Understanding those agile and lean principles and applying them in a way that just makes sense for your specific situation.
Now, we've been mainly talking about this at a team level, but DA, this doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
It scales up, right, to the entire organization.
You got it. That's one of the most, I think, powerful aspects of DA. It can create this alignment across an entire company.
Wow.
From those individual contributors all the way up to senior leadership.
Okay.
It gives everyone a common language, a shared understanding of how to work in a more, agile and effective way.
So we're not just talking about isolated pockets of agility within an organization. We're talking about this fundamental shift in mindset, like across the board.
Absolutely. It's about creating that culture of continuous improvement where everyone is empowered, to see where those opportunities for optimization are and then contribute to making things better.
And that's where the true power is transforming how teams work
Yeah.
and also how entire organizations operate.
Exactly.
Now, that's what I'm talking about. That is thinking big. There's a whole new way of working, flexible, adaptable, constantly improving. But how does this actually work in the real world? Let's say, for example, I'm a company that's been using Scrum for a while now, and I'm really intrigued by this whole disciplined agile approach. How do I begin to make that shift? Where do I even start?
That's a great question. And it's a common one, too. It's a journey, not a light switch.
Right.
But let's dive into that right after this quick break.
So before we took that break, we were really getting into the nitty-gritty of actually putting disciplined agile into practice.
Right.
We've got this company. They know their way around Scrum, but they're super ready to embrace that flexibility and adaptability that comes with DA.
They're ready to level up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But where do they even begin?
Well, it's not like flipping a switch, right?
Right.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
One common path is to start by just introducing DA principles within those existing Scrum teams.
Okay.
It's like adding spices to a dish you already know you like.
Okay, I like that.
You're not changing the whole recipe,
Right.
just enhancing it.
So evolution, not revolution.
Exactly.
Okay.
So for example, right, a Scrum team might say, hey, let's incorporate these daily stand-ups that Kanban uses to get a better visual on our workflow.
Oh, okay.
Or they might try, Lean's waste walks to see where the bottlenecks are in their process.
So they're kind of like dipping their toes into the DA toolbox there,
Yeah,
trying out different tools, seeing what works for them.
exactly. That's the key here. Start small, experiment, Learn as you go.
And the DSM is there every step of the way to, like,
Absolutely.
guide them, help them.
Yeah, the DSM is super crucial in this phase. They guide that team in choosing those techniques, right? And adapting them to whatever their context is.
So they're like, back to that chef analogy, they're like that experienced chef saying, hey, I've seen this work in this other scenario.
Yeah.
Why don't you give this a try?
Exactly. Like, hey, you know those Kanban boards are killer for visualizing workflow? Let's try that and see how it impacts your sprint planning.
Let's experiment a little bit.
Yeah, it's about letting the team make those decisions, but having someone there to, who's been there before and can give them the support they need.
Right. Who's got that experience to share?
Exactly. And as that team gets more comfy with the DA principles and practices, they can get into the really cool stuff.
The really advanced stuff.
Yeah, like scaling DA across multiple teams, even the whole organization.
Now, that's where things get really interesting, but also potentially really, really tricky, right? I mean, scaling Agile, I can only imagine, is not as simple as just copy-pasting what worked for one team and expecting it to work across an entire company.
You are telling me it takes some serious planning and careful execution to do it right?
Right.
But DA, it really does offer something special in this area.
It does.
It really does.
Okay. How so?
Remember how we talked about how DA isn't about those rigid rules? It's more about the principles and the guidelines.
Right, yeah.
That flexibility, that's your golden ticket when you're trying to scale Agile across an organization.
So instead of forcing everyone into one specific way of working, DA allows for that customization and adaptation that different teams and departments need.
100%. DA gets that what works for a small, tight-knit development team might not work for, say, a big marketing team that's spread out across the globe.
Makes sense.
It's all about finding that sweet spot between keeping things consistent and allowing for that flexibility.
Right, so everyone's speaking the same Agile language, but with room for those variations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know who really shines here?
Who?
The DAS.
There they are again.
Mm-hmm. They're like that bridge between all the different teams, making sure everyone's on the same page, working toward that same goal,
I like that.
but doing it in a way that makes sense for each of them.
So they're kind of like Agile ambassadors,
I love that.
spreading the good word of Agile and helping these teams adapt it in a way that works for them.
Yes. They're facilitators, they're coaches, mentors, all rolled into one.
Now, you've mentioned the DSM's expertise quite a bit, and I'm wondering what kind of background, what kind of experience do you really need to thrive in a role like this?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like it requires a very diverse, very unique skill set.
For sure. You definitely need a strong understanding of Agile principles and practices. That's a given.
Okay.
But more than that, you got to have that Agile mindset.
Right.
You have to be adaptable, collaborative, and always willing to learn and grow.
So it's not just about, like, checking boxes on a certification. It's about embodying the Agile spirit.
Right. Exactly. A good DAISM is a strong communicator. They can facilitate like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And they're natural problem solvers.
They just exude that can-do attitude.
Yeah. They're comfortable with ambiguity, with change.
Which is, as we know, a huge part of Agile.
It is, and they can bring others along with them through those choppy waters
Yeah.
with confidence and, empathy too.
It sounds incredibly challenging, but equally rewarding.
Oh, for sure.
To be able to lead teams, help organizations transform how they work.
It's so fulfilling.
And it seems like as more and more organizations do embrace these Agile ways of working, the need for these skilled DAISMs is only going to continue to grow.
Absolutely.
So for our listeners out there who are thinking about, diving into the world of disciplined Agile, maybe even becoming DAISM certified, now might be the time to take that step.
It's a great time. It's a valuable investment
For sure.
in your career. And it'll give you the tools and the know-how to lead teams in what is a very quickly changing world.
Yeah.
It's not just about adding another line to the resume, right?
Right.
It's about becoming that agent of change, helping organizations reach their potential.
Wow. I love that, unlocking that potential.
Yeah.
Now, this has been, a lot of talk about transformation and empowerment, and I'm all for it. It's incredibly inspiring, but let's bring it down to earth for a moment. Let's get really practical.
Okay.
Can you give us some tangible examples of how these DA principles actually show up in real-world situations?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, let's say I'm a project manager.
Yeah.
I'm on a really tight deadline,
Mm-hmm.
and I suddenly realize that my initial plan, it's just not going to cut it.
Oh, yeah.
What would a disciplined Agile approach look like in that moment?
Oh, man. Every project manager has been there.
Right.
In a more traditional environment, you might see some panic, maybe trying to force that existing plan to work, or even just throwing more resources at the problem without actually fixing the root cause.
Yeah, which, as we know, creates more problems.
Exactly.
So what's the DA way?
DA is all about taking a breath, first of all. Remembering that flexibility and adaptability, that's what we're all about. So instead of panicking, you gather the team, be real with them about what's going on, and then you reassess that plan together.
Okay, so transparency, collaboration are essential here.
100%, you'd work together, figure out why the plan's not working, what needs to change, and what you can all adjust to get back on track.
So it's about really empowering the team to be a part of finding the solutions,
Yeah.
not just dictating a new plan from above.
Exactly.
It's responding to that change effectively, not being married to a plan that's clearly not working anymore.
Right, and I think that's what makes DA so powerful.
That adaptability,
Yeah.
especially in today's world where businesses are facing constant change and uncertainty.
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly why we're seeing discipline and agile pop up in all sorts of industries now.
Oh, interesting.
From finance to healthcare, government, education, you name it.
So it's not just a tech thing anymore.
Definitely not.
It's really interesting to see how it's evolved. We've talked about project management, marketing, even just now, kind of these different industries, what's driving this wider adoption of DA.
I think it's that people are starting to realize that the old way of doing things, that top-down command and control approach, it just doesn't work in our world today.
Right,
The world's too complex, things change too quickly.
right, exactly.
Organizations are realizing they have to be more agile, more adaptable, more responsive to thrive.
And disciplined agile gives them the framework to actually do that.
Exactly. It's about empowering those teams to make decisions closer to the work, to adapt quickly and effectively when things change.
We've covered so much ground on this deep dive. We've talked about what disciplined agile is, why it matters, explored the key parts, seen how it plays out in real life. What are some key takeaways you hope stick with our listeners? So much to unpack here. If our listeners only remember one thing from this deep dive, what would you say is the most crucial takeaway about disciplined agiles?
Ooh, that's a tough one. But I think the most important thing is that DA isn't about, following the strict set of rules. It's more about understanding the context you're in, choosing the right tools from the toolbox.
Which is overflowing, by the way.
Right. It's huge. And then, constantly adapting as you go based on what you're learning.
So it's about being agile in the truest sense,
Yeah.
right? Responding to change, being okay with uncertainty, and always looking for ways to improve.
You got it. It's about empowering those teams to really do their best work no matter what comes up and giving them the freedom to try new things, experiment within a framework that supports continuous improvement.
And we've talked a lot about DA at the team level, but what about for an individual? What advice would you give to someone listening who's thinking, disciplined agile sounds really interesting, I want to learn more? What would you tell them?
I'd say don't be intimidated by it all. DA is all about meeting people where they are and saying, here's a path for growth.
I like that. Okay.
Start with what we talked about today. Dive a little deeper into those principles, read a book, check out some websites. There are tons of resources out there. Maybe go to a workshop, a webinar, get some hands-on experience. And then if you're really serious about it, becoming a certified DSM is an awesome next step.
It's a journey. Embracing disciplined agile. For individuals, for organizations, it's a constant journey of discovery and growth.
It totally is. And the coolest part, we're all doing it together. We're all learning as we go.
I love that.
As more companies adopt DA, share their experiences, it just builds on itself and we all benefit.
That's the beauty of agile.
It really is. It's about working better together.
Well said. This has been a fantastic deep dive into disciplined agile.
It really has.
I feel like we just dipped our toes in the water, but it's opened up this whole world of possibilities.
It has.
So to our listeners, if you're ready to ditch those rigid frameworks, embrace this more, disciplined but adaptable way of working, DA is definitely worth looking into.
It is.
Time to move on from that one-size-fits-all approach and find what works for your projects, your teams, your organization.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us on this amazing journey into the heart of disciplined agile. Until next time, stay agile, everybody.